Ocean Facts, Sleep Narration Script, Extended. Hello and welcome. Wherever you are right now, I'm glad you're here. Maybe you're lying down, ready to rest. Maybe you're sitting quietly, letting the day slowly fade away. However you've arrived at this moment, I invite you to get comfortable. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing settle into its own natural rhythm. Tonight, we're going to explore something vast and ancient and beautiful. We're going to drift together through facts about the ocean. And if you fall asleep along the way, that's perfectly fine. The ocean will still be here, patient and eternal, just as it's always been. So close your eyes if you'd like. Or let them rest gently, half open, on some soft point in the distance. And let's sink gently into the blue. Imagine for a moment that you're looking down at Earth from space. You see the swirl of white clouds, the brown and green patches of continents. But what fills most of your view? What dominates the sphere turning slowly below you? Water. Blue water, stretching endlessly. Most of Earth isn't land at all. In fact, the ocean covers about 71% of our planet's surface. 7 out of every 10 parts. That's a lot of water. So much water that if you could smooth out all of Earth's mountains and fill in all its valleys, if you could make the planet perfectly round, the ocean would cover everything. The entire world would be underwater to a depth of about 2.5 kilometers. Think about that for a moment. We live on what we call Earth, but really, we live on an ocean planet. The Pacific Ocean alone, just that one body of water, is larger than all the land on Earth combined. Every continent, every island, every bit of ground you could walk on, all of it together, and the Pacific is still bigger. We've given names to different parts of this water: Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic, Southern. 5 oceans, we say. But really, it's all one. One vast, connected body of water that wraps around our world. Ancient sailors understood this. They knew that if you sailed far enough in any direction, you'd find the waters all flowed together. No walls, no boundaries. Just one world ocean, touching every shore. And we're all connected by it. The water that laps against a beach in Japan is the same water that will eventually touch the coast of California, and then Chile, and then back around again. It's always moving, always flowing, always joining and rejoining itself. Isn't that a comforting thought? That we're all connected by the same ancient waters? That the ocean holds us all on this planet together like a gentle hand. Let's go deeper now. Let's sink beneath the surface and explore what lies below. The ocean has mountains taller than Everest. Did you know that? Hidden beneath the waves, there are vast ranges of underwater peaks, ridges that stretch for thousands of kilometers, valleys deeper than any canyon on land. The average depth of the ocean is about 3,700 meters. That's deep enough to swallow 10 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. But there are places where it goes much, much deeper. The deepest place we know of is called the Mariana Trench, located in the western Pacific Ocean. And at the bottom of this trench, there's a spot called Challenger Deep. It reaches down almost 11,000 meters, nearly 11 kilometers straight down. If you could take Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on land, and drop it into Challenger Deep, the peak wouldn't even break the surface. There would still be more than 2 kilometers of water above it. What must it be like down there? The pressure is immense. More than 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure we feel up here. For every 10 meters you descend in the ocean, the pressure increases by about 1 atmosphere. So at 11,000 meters, it's like having more than 1,000 kilograms pressing down on every square centimeter of your body. That's the weight of about 50 jumbo jets on every small area. And yet, life exists there. Creatures have adapted to that crushing darkness, that unimaginable pressure. Only a handful of humans have ever been to the deepest part of the ocean. In 1960, 2 men descended in a bathyscaphe called the Trieste. They saw fish down there, shrimp-like creatures moving through the darkness. Decades later, in 2012, filmmaker James Cameron made a solo dive to the same spot. He described it as a desolate lunar landscape, but even there, even in that extreme place, he found life. Small amphipods, microorganisms, evidence that life finds a way even in the most impossible conditions. Many of the creatures that live in the deep ocean have never seen sunlight. They exist in perpetual night, in waters so dark that no human eye could see anything at all. But they're not truly in darkness, because many of them create their own light. Bioluminescence, we call it. The ability to produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. Down in the deep ocean, creatures glow with blues and greens, like stars scattered through an underwater sky. They use these lights to attract prey, to communicate, to find mates in the vast darkness. They've turned the midnight ocean into their own kind of galaxy. And isn't that beautiful? That even in the deepest, darkest places on Earth, even where the sun has never reached, life doesn't give up. It creates its own light. It finds its own way to shine. Let that thought settle over you for a moment. Even in extreme darkness, life finds a way. Even under the heaviest pressure, beauty exists. But the ocean isn't just deep. It's ancient. The water that surrounds us, that fills our seas and falls as rain and flows in our rivers, has been here for an incredibly long time. Scientists believe that Earth's oceans first formed about 4 billion years ago, not long after the planet itself came into being. 4 billion years. That's hard to grasp, isn't it? That's before any life existed on land, before plants, before animals, before anything we'd recognize. Where did all this water come from? For a long time, that was a mystery. Now we think it came from 2 main sources. Some of it was already here, trapped inside the rocks and minerals that formed Earth, released over time through volcanic activity. Ancient volcanoes spewing steam and gas, gradually filling the early atmosphere with water vapor that eventually cooled and fell as rain. Imagine that. The first rain, falling on a young planet with no oceans yet, accumulating over millions of years. But that wasn't enough to fill the oceans we have today. Scientists believe that much of Earth's water came from space. Comets, those icy travelers from the outer solar system, crashed into our planet billions of years ago, bringing water with them. Asteroids too, rocky bodies that contained ice within them. Little by little, over millions of years, these cosmic deliveries added to Earth's water supply. So the water around us, the water in the oceans, it's both terrestrial and extraterrestrial. It's from Earth and from the stars. Isn't that wonderful? We're swimming in stardust. And here's something even more amazing. The water molecules themselves, the H2O that makes up every ocean and every raindrop and every glass of water you've ever drunk, those molecules are almost indestructible. They can be broken apart under extreme conditions, but under normal circumstances, they just keep cycling. The water in the ocean today has been here for billions of years, cycling through different forms, different places, but always the same molecules. This is called the water cycle, and it's been running continuously for eons. Water evaporates from the ocean, rises into the atmosphere, forms clouds, falls as rain, flows in rivers back to the sea, and begins again. Every drop of water you drink has been part of this cycle countless times. The water in your body right now, it's ancient. It's been a cloud over ancient Rome. It's been a wave in a prehistoric sea. It's been drunk by dinosaurs and by early humans and by every living thing that's ever needed water. You and I and the ocean, we share the same ancient atoms. The ocean is Earth's memory keeper in a way. It holds within it the chemical signatures of everything that's ever dissolved into it, every bit of mineral that's ever washed from land, every breath that's ever been exhaled by marine life. It remembers volcanic eruptions from millions of years ago, ice ages and warm periods, the rise and fall of species. And it will continue long after we're gone, carrying those memories forward into deep time. There's something comforting about that, isn't there? That nothing is ever truly lost. Everything becomes part of the great cycle, the endless return. Water to cloud, to rain, to river, to ocean. Again and again and again. Eternal. And these ancient waters, they're always moving, always flowing, beneath the calm surface of the ocean. There are rivers, not rivers of a different substance, but rivers within the water itself, massive currents that flow through the sea like arteries through a body, carrying warmth and cold, nutrients and life from one end of the earth to the other. The largest system of ocean currents is sometimes called the global conveyor belt, or the thermohaline circulation. Thermo means heat, haline means salt. It's driven by differences in temperature and salinity. Here's how it works, gently and slowly. Warm water near the equator, heated by the tropical sun, flows along the surface toward the poles. As it travels north or south, it gradually cools. When it reaches the cold polar regions, something happens. The water becomes so cold and so dense that it sinks. It drops down into the deep ocean, beneath the warmer water, and then it flows back toward the equator along the ocean floor, a river of cold, deep water moving through darkness. This process takes a long time. A single water molecule might spend 1,000 years completing the full journey. 1,000 years flowing through the ocean, rising and sinking, warming and cooling, traveling from the Arctic to the Antarctic and back again. Imagine that. A drop of water that sank to the ocean floor when medieval kingdoms ruled Europe might only now be rising back to the surface. The ocean works on timescales that dwarf human lifetimes, patient and unhurried. One of the most famous surface currents is the Gulf Stream. It carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico up along the eastern coast of North America, then across the Atlantic toward Europe. This current is about 100 kilometers wide and flows at speeds of several kilometers per hour. That might not sound fast, but consider the volume of water it moves. The Gulf Stream transports more water than all the rivers on Earth combined. All of them. Every drop flowing in every river, and the Gulf Stream moves more. This current has profound effects on climate. It's one of the reasons why Western Europe is relatively mild compared to other places at the same latitude. London is about the same distance from the equator as Newfoundland, but London is much warmer because of the heat brought by the Gulf Stream. The ocean doesn't just hold water, it distributes warmth around the planet, moderating temperatures, making our world more livable. There are surface currents driven by wind, deep currents driven by density differences, currents influenced by the Earth's rotation, by the shape of ocean basins, by the gravitational pull of the moon. The ocean is always in motion, stirring itself, mixing itself, balancing itself. When one part gets too warm, currents carry that heat away. When one part gets too cold, warmth flows in. The ocean is always working to maintain equilibrium, to keep Earth's climate stable. It's been doing this for billions of years, long before we were here, and it will continue long after. There's something deeply comforting about that, isn't there? The ocean is always working, always balancing, always taking care of the planet. We can rest knowing that these great systems are in motion, patient and persistent. The Coriolis effect, caused by Earth's rotation, influences how these currents flow. In the northern hemisphere, currents tend to curve to the right. In the southern hemisphere, they curve to the left. This creates massive circular patterns called gyres. There are 5 major ocean gyres, enormous loops of water that can be thousands of kilometers across. The North Atlantic Gyre, the South Atlantic Gyre, the North Pacific Gyre, the South Pacific Gyre, and the Indian Ocean Gyre. Within these gyres, water circulates slowly, sometimes taking years to complete one rotation. At the center of some gyres, particularly in the Pacific, there are regions of relatively calm water where floating debris accumulates. This is where ocean plastics tend to gather, unfortunately, creating what are sometimes called garbage patches. But even in these accumulation zones, the ocean is working. Bacteria are evolving to break down plastics. Organisms are adapting. The ocean is resilient, always seeking balance, always trying to process what we've added to it. It's a reminder that the ocean, while vast and powerful, is not invincible. It needs care, it needs respect, and it deserves our protection. But let's return to the wonder, to the peace. Let's think about how these currents connect distant shores. Water from the coast of Africa eventually reaches the Caribbean. Water from Antarctica flows toward the tropics. The ocean is constantly mixing, constantly redistributing, constantly connecting. No part of the ocean is truly isolated. It's all one system, all one body, all one living, breathing entity. The ocean doesn't just move water, though. It breathes. Every other breath you take, every second inhalation that fills your lungs with life-giving oxygen comes from the sea. Not from the waves themselves, of course, but from the countless tiny organisms that live in the sunlit surface waters. These are the invisible heroes of our planet, the microscopic beings that produce much of Earth's oxygen. We call them phytoplankton. Phyto means plant, plankton means drifter. Plant drifters, tiny organisms, most of them single-celled, floating near the ocean's surface, drifting with the currents. They're incredibly diverse. Diatoms with their intricate glass shells, cyanobacteria that were among the first oxygen producers billions of years ago, dinoflagellates that sometimes glow with bioluminescence at night. Some are so small that millions could fit in a teaspoon of seawater. But collectively, they're mighty. Scientists estimate that phytoplankton produce between 50 and 80% of all the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. More than half. More than all the rainforests and grasslands and forests on land combined. They do this through photosynthesis, the same process that land plants use. They take in carbon dioxide and water, use the energy from sunlight to convert these into sugars they can use for food, and release oxygen as a byproduct. It's happening right now in every sun-touched part of the ocean, billions and trillions of times per second. An invisible forest beneath the waves, an underwater garden larger than anything on land, quietly producing the air we breathe. One type of cyanobacteria, called Prochlorococcus, might be the most abundant photosynthetic organism on Earth. These tiny cells, less than a micrometer across, exist in numbers almost beyond comprehension. Scientists estimate there are about 3 octillion Prochlorococcus cells in the ocean. That's a 3 followed by 27 zeros. They're in every sample of seawater from tropical and subtropical regions. You can't see them individually, but collectively they're responsible for producing about 10% of Earth's oxygen. One type of organism, invisible to the naked eye, giving us every 10th breath we take. Think about that for a moment. One tiny species drifting in the sunlit waters, producing 10% of the oxygen on Earth. Without them, without all the phytoplankton working together in their invisible forest, life on Earth as we know it couldn't exist. We'd run out of oxygen. The atmosphere would change. The planet would become uninhabitable. But they're there, doing their work, quietly, ceaselessly, generation after generation. They've been doing it for billions of years. They'll continue doing it long after we're gone. They don't ask for recognition. They don't need thanks. They just exist, and in existing, they give us life. The ocean does something else crucial too. It absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. In fact, the ocean has absorbed about 30% of all the carbon dioxide that humans have released into the air since the Industrial Revolution began. Without the ocean doing this, atmospheric CO2 levels would be much higher, and climate change would be much more severe. The ocean acts as a buffer, a stabilizer, helping to regulate Earth's temperature and atmospheric composition. Cold water absorbs more CO2 than warm water, so the polar regions are particularly important in this process. In the cold waters around Antarctica and the Arctic, CO2 dissolves into the sea and is carried down by sinking currents into the deep ocean, where it can remain for hundreds or thousands of years, locked away from the atmosphere. This is called the biological carbon pump, and it's one of the most important climate regulation systems on Earth. And when phytoplankton die, they sink, carrying the carbon in their bodies down to the deep ocean. Some of this carbon reaches the ocean floor and becomes part of marine sediments, locked away for millions of years. Over geological time, this process has removed enormous amounts of carbon from the atmosphere. Much of the limestone and chalk rock on Earth formed from the shells and skeletons of marine organisms that lived millions of years ago. The white cliffs of Dover, for instance, are made of countless tiny fossilized phytoplankton. The ocean has been regulating Earth's carbon cycle for eons, keeping the planet habitable, keeping the atmosphere balanced. The ocean is not just a passive container of water. It's an active participant in maintaining the conditions that make life on Earth possible. It breathes with us, for us. We breathe because of countless tiny invisible beings floating in the sunlit waters, turning sunlight into life, turning CO2 into oxygen. Every breath is a gift from the ocean. Let that thought wash over you gently. The ocean gives you breath. The microscopic drifters in distant waters make your life possible. We're all connected, all breathing together. The oxygen molecule entering your lungs right now might have been released by a diatom in the Pacific Ocean just days ago. It traveled in the wind, crossed continents, found its way to you. And now it's sustaining you, giving you life. You and the ocean, and the tiny phytoplankton, all part of the same system, all connected by breath. And within this breathing ocean, there is sound. The ocean is not silent. Far from it. If you could sink beneath the waves with ears capable of hearing underwater sounds, you'd find yourself surrounded by a symphony. Clicks and whistles, groans and rumbles, snaps and hums. The ocean is alive with sound, and it carries that sound far better than air does. In fact, sound travels about 4 times faster in water than in air, about 1,500 meters per second compared to 340 in air. And it can travel much farther too. In the deep ocean, under the right conditions, sounds can travel for hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. This happens because of something called the SOFAR channel, the sound fixing and ranging channel. At a certain depth, usually between 600 and 1,200 meters, water properties create a layer where sound waves get trapped and can travel enormous distances with very little loss of energy. Whales seem to know about this. They often vocalize at depths where their calls will enter the SOFAR channel and propagate across entire ocean basins. Whales are the great singers of the sea. Humpback whales, in particular, are famous for their songs. These aren't just random noises. They're complex, structured sequences that can last for 20 minutes or more. The whale repeats the song, sometimes for hours, the same themes recurring, the same patterns emerging. A humpback whale song has phrases which combine into themes, which combine into a complete song. It's structured like music, with rhythm and repetition and variation. And here's something remarkable. The songs change over time. Each population of humpback whales has its own song, and that song evolves from year to year. New phrases appear, old ones drop out. Sometimes a particularly catchy phrase will spread through a population like a hit single, with more and more whales incorporating it into their songs. It's like culture, like music passed from one generation to the next, constantly being remixed and reimagined. We don't fully understand why they sing. It might be to attract mates, to establish territory, to communicate across distances, or perhaps for reasons we can't even imagine. But the songs are beautiful, haunting, otherworldly. If you've ever heard a recording of a humpback whale song, it sounds like an alien transmission, full of eerie moans and ascending spirals of sound, creaks and cries that seem to express something profound, something beyond words. Blue whales, the largest animals ever to live on Earth, produce sounds that are among the loudest made by any creature. Their low-frequency calls can reach 188 decibels, louder than a jet engine. But because the frequency is so low, below the range of human hearing, usually around 10 to 40 hertz, we can't actually hear them without special equipment. These calls travel across entire ocean basins. A blue whale in the Indian Ocean might be heard by another blue whale thousands of kilometers away. They're calling to each other across vast distances, conversing across the empty blue. Scientists have noticed something troubling, though. Blue whale calls have been getting lower in frequency over the decades. They're not sure why. It might be a response to increased ocean noise from human activities, ships and sonar and drilling. The whales might be adjusting their calls to be heard over the din. Or it might be related to population recovery after whaling, with more whales meaning different acoustic dynamics. Whatever the reason, it shows that the ocean's soundscape is changing, that human presence affects even the deepest, most remote parts of the sea. Dolphins use sound for communication and for hunting. They produce clicks and whistles, each dolphin having its own signature whistle that acts like a name. When dolphins meet, they exchange whistles, essentially introducing themselves. They call to each other, identify themselves, coordinate their movements. Mother dolphins whistle to their calves almost constantly in the first days of life, essentially teaching the calf its own name. And the calf will use that signature whistle for the rest of its life. Dolphins also use echolocation, sending out rapid clicks and listening to the echoes that bounce back, building up a sound picture of their surroundings. They can tell the size, shape, distance, and even internal structure of objects by sound alone. A dolphin can echolocate a fish buried in sand. It can distinguish between different types of metal. It can detect a human fetus in a pregnant woman's womb. In murky water where eyes are useless, sound becomes sight. Dolphins navigate and hunt in complete darkness, using only their ears and the clicks they produce. It's a sense we don't have, a way of perceiving the world that's entirely foreign to us. But it's not just the large charismatic animals that make sound. Snapping shrimp, tiny creatures that live on coral reefs and in seagrass beds, produce one of the loudest sounds in the ocean relative to their size. They have a specialized claw that they can snap shut so quickly it creates a cavitation bubble. When that bubble collapses, it creates a sharp cracking sound, a tiny underwater thunderclap that can reach 200 decibels. For a moment, that bubble reaches temperatures nearly as hot as the sun's surface, about 4,700 degrees Celsius. It's one of the fastest movements in the animal kingdom, and it's used to stun prey and defend territory. One snapping shrimp is loud. Millions of them together on a reef create a constant crackle and pop, a background symphony of tiny explosions. It's so loud that during World War II, submarines used to hide near reefs because the noise of the snapping shrimp interfered with enemy sonar. The submarines were essentially invisible, hidden in a curtain of biological noise. Even today, the crackling of snapping shrimp is a major component of ocean ambient noise in shallow tropical waters. It's estimated that there are billions, perhaps trillions, of snapping shrimp in the world's oceans, all clicking away, creating a global chorus that never stops. The ocean itself makes sounds. Waves crashing create rumbles and hisses. Ice cracking and carving from glaciers sends groans and sharp cracks through the water that can be heard hundreds of kilometers away. Underwater earthquakes produce low-frequency rumbles that can circle the globe, bouncing off continents, resonating through ocean basins. Rain pattering on the surface creates a gentle static, each raindrop making a characteristic sound as it hits the water. Heavy rain creates a loud hiss. Light rain creates a softer patter. Scientists can actually tell how hard it's raining just by listening to underwater recordings. Even individual raindrops can be heard underwater, each one making a tiny splash and ping. When a raindrop hits the ocean surface, it creates a brief underwater bubble, and as that bubble oscillates and eventually bursts, it produces sound. In a rainstorm, there are thousands or millions of these tiny pings, creating a complex soundscape that marine animals must navigate. Some fish actually use rain sounds as cues for behavior, timing their spawning or migration to rainy seasons. And there are mysterious sounds too. In the 1990s, underwater microphones detected an extremely loud, ultra-low frequency sound in the South Pacific. It was dubbed the bloop. It was so loud it was heard on sensors more than 5,000 kilometers apart. Its frequency pattern suggested it might be biological in origin, from some enormous creature, which led to speculation about giant, unknown marine animals. But further analysis suggested it was probably the sound of an ice quake, ice cracking and breaking off from an Antarctic glacier. Still, the idea that there might be sounds in the ocean we don't understand, that there might be creatures we haven't discovered making calls we haven't heard, captures the imagination. The ocean is full of voices, full of sound, a living, breathing, singing world. Even in the depths where light never reaches, sound travels. Creatures call to each other in the darkness, navigating by echo and song. Sperm whales, diving to depths of over 2 kilometers to hunt giant squid, produce the loudest sounds made by any animal, clicks that can reach 230 decibels. They use these clicks for echolocation to find prey in the pitch-black depths. They also use patterns of clicks, called codas, to communicate with each other. Different sperm whale families have different dialects, different patterns of clicks that identify them. It's culture again, learned behavior passed down through generations. Close your eyes and imagine it for a moment. The songs of whales traveling through deep blue, the clicking conversations of dolphins, the crackling chorus of tiny shrimp, the groans of ice, the rumble of underwater earthquakes, the patter of rain, all of it blending together into an underwater soundscape unlike anything we experience on land. The ocean is a world of sound, and in that sound, creatures find each other, communicate, survive. Even in vastness, even across impossible distances, they call to each other. They're not alone, and neither are we. We're part of this same world, breathing the same air produced by the ocean, connected by the same water cycle, listening to the same planet. But the ocean holds more than sound. It holds light, though in a different way than we're used to. Sunlight dances differently beneath the waves. When light from the sun hits the ocean surface, several things happen. Some reflects back, which is why we can see the surface glittering and shining. The angle of the sun, the roughness of the water, the presence of waves, all affect how much light reflects. On a calm day with the sun directly overhead, only about 2% of light reflects. But at low angles, like sunrise or sunset, much more reflects, which is why the ocean looks so bright and golden at those times. But much of the sunlight penetrates into the water, and as it descends, it changes. Water absorbs light, and it absorbs different colors at different rates. The first color to disappear is red. Red light has a longer wavelength, and longer wavelengths are absorbed more quickly by water. Within just a few meters of the surface, reds and oranges are absorbed, filtered out by the water. If you cut yourself while diving just 10 meters down, your blood looks green or brown because there's no red light left to reflect off it. Everything starts to look blue and green. As you go deeper, more colors vanish. Yellows fade away by about 15 meters. Greens dim and disappear by about 50 meters. By about 20 meters down, most colors except blue have been absorbed. The ocean becomes increasingly monochromatic, a world painted in shades of blue. This is why the ocean looks blue, both from above and from within. Water absorbs the warmer colors of the spectrum and scatters the blues, so blue is what remains, what our eyes receive. By 200 meters deep, even the blues are fading into a deepening twilight. The water becomes darker and darker. By 300 meters, it's nearly dark. The sun's light, which seems so bright and all-encompassing at the surface, has been almost entirely absorbed. Scientists divide the ocean into zones based on light penetration. The top layer, from the surface down to about 200 meters, is called the euphotic zone, or the sunlit zone. Euphotic means well lit. This is where there's enough light for photosynthesis to occur, where phytoplankton can grow, where most of the ocean's visible life exists. It's a thin skin of light draped over the vast darkness below. This narrow layer, representing less than 10% of the ocean's volume, is where most of the ocean's biological productivity happens. It's the engine room of the ocean, the place where sunlight energy enters the marine food web. Below that is the twilight zone, or the dysphotic zone. Dysphotic means poorly lit. It extends from 200 to about 1,000 meters. Some light penetrates here, but it's dim and blue, faint glimmers from above, not enough for photosynthesis. This is a realm of shadows, where creatures with large eyes strain to see the faint glimmers from above, where bioluminescence becomes increasingly important, where the last traces of the sun's warmth fade away into cold. Many of the fish and squid that live here undergo vertical migration, rising toward the surface at night to feed in the richer waters above, then descending during the day to avoid predators. This daily migration is one of the largest movements of biomass on Earth. Every evening, as the sun sets, billions of small fish, squid, krill, and other creatures rise from the depths. Every morning they descend again. The migration involves so much biomass that it can be detected by ship sonar, appearing as a mysterious layer that rises and falls with the sun. For decades, this was called the deep scattering layer, and sailors didn't know what it was. Now we know its life, moving in a daily rhythm as old as the ocean itself, following the light, following the food, rising and falling with the turning of the Earth. And below the twilight zone, from 1,000 meters down to the ocean floor, is the midnight zone, the aphotic zone. Aphotic means no light. No sunlight reaches here, none at all. It's a world of perpetual darkness, where the concept of day and night is meaningless, where time itself seems to slow and stop. The midnight zone makes up about 90% of the ocean's volume. Most of the ocean is dark. Most of the ocean has never seen the sun. The average depth of the ocean is about 3,700 meters, well into the midnight zone. When we think of the ocean, we usually picture sunlit waves and colorful fish. But the reality is that most of the ocean is a cold, dark, high-pressure environment, utterly unlike the surface. But remember the bioluminescence we talked about earlier. In the twilight and midnight zones, where sunlight is scarce or absent, many creatures create their own light. They've evolved the ability to produce light through chemical reactions, using organs called photophores. These are specialized cells or structures that contain light-producing chemicals, usually a molecule called luciferin that reacts with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase, producing light. The light is usually blue or blue-green, wavelengths between 470 and 490 nanometers, the colors that travel farthest through seawater. Some fish have light organs on their bellies that point downward. They use these to match the faint glow from above, a technique called counter-illumination. By matching the ambient light, they eliminate their silhouette, making themselves invisible to predators looking up from below. They essentially disappear, hidden in plain sight. Other creatures have lights they can flash in patterns, signals to potential mates. Each species has its own pattern, its own code, ensuring they find the right partner in the darkness. Some use light as a lure, dangling a glowing appendage to attract curious prey close enough to catch. The anglerfish is famous for this, with its bioluminescent lure extending from its forehead, wiggling enticingly in the darkness. Some squid can produce dramatic light shows, flashing patterns of light across their skin, creating waves of illumination that ripple and pulse. They use this to communicate, to startle predators, to coordinate with other squid. Some jellyfish glow when disturbed, creating beautiful blue-green pulses of light. This might serve to startle predators, or to attract even larger predators that might eat whatever is attacking the jellyfish. It's called a burglar alarm effect, using light to call for help. In the deep ocean, bioluminescence is incredibly common. Scientists estimate that 90% of deep-sea animals produce light in some way. So while the sun never reaches those depths, the darkness is punctuated by countless tiny lights, a living constellation. If you could swim through the midnight zone with eyes adapted to see it, you'd witness one of the most beautiful sights in nature. Lights flickering on and off, moving through the water like fireflies, some steady, some pulsing, some bright, some dim. Blues and greens glowing in the endless night, appearing and vanishing, drifting and darting. It would be like floating through a galaxy, stars all around you, above and below and on every side. The ocean has created its own stars. Where the sun cannot reach, life creates its own illumination. It refuses to surrender to darkness. It makes beauty out of necessity. Think about that as you rest. Even where conditions seem impossible, even where the light fades and pressure builds and cold seeps in, life adapts. Life persists. Life even creates beauty. The deep ocean isn't empty or dead. It's full of light that life itself has made. It's full of creatures living their lives, finding food, finding mates, raising young, all in the darkness, all under crushing pressure, all in cold that would kill most surface creatures. They've made a home there. They've thrived there. It's a testament to the adaptability of life, the persistence of life, the creativity of evolution. And in these waters, seen and unseen, in the sunlit shallows and the dark depths, life takes countless forms. The ocean is home to an astonishing diversity of life. More species live in the ocean than anywhere else on Earth. Scientists have identified and named about 250,000 marine species so far, but they estimate the true number might be between 500,000 and 2 million species. Maybe more. We don't really know. Every year, new species are discovered. New creatures are found in places we thought were barren. New behaviors are observed. New relationships are understood. The ocean continues to surprise us. The ocean is so vast and so deep that most of it remains unexplored. We've mapped more of the surface of Mars than we've mapped the ocean floor. We've sent probes to the outer solar system, to Jupiter and Saturn and beyond. But we've barely scratched the surface of our own ocean. Less than 5% of the ocean floor has been seen by human eyes. Less than 25% of the ocean has been mapped in any detail. There are creatures living in the deep sea that we've never seen, species that exist entirely unknown to us, living their lives in the darkness, unaware that we exist, and we unaware of them. In 2018, a deep-sea expedition to the Atacama Trench off the coast of Chile descending to depths of 8,000 meters, found three completely new species of snailfish. These pale, translucent creatures with soft bodies and no scales were living under enormous pressure in cold darkness, feeding on tiny crustaceans. They're specially adapted to their environment, with pressure-resistant proteins and a different cellular structure than shallow water fish. They're perfectly at home in a place that would instantly kill most fish. And they're beautiful in their own strange way, ghostly and delicate, like creatures from another world. In 2020, researchers exploring seamounts off the coast of Australia discovered a massive detached coral reef 700 meters wide and 500 meters tall, taller than the Empire State Building. It had been hidden beneath the waves all along, unknown despite being in a relatively well-studied area. How many more such structures exist, undiscovered? How many hidden reefs and underwater mountains and deep trenches are out there, waiting to be found? The variety of ocean life is staggering. From bacteria so small you'd need a microscope to see thousands of them, to the blue whale, the largest animal ever to exist on Earth. Blue whales can reach lengths of over 30 meters and weigh as much as 180 tons. That's as much as 30 elephants or 25 large cars, or about 2,400 adult humans. Their hearts are the size of small cars. Their arteries are wide enough for a human child to swim through. Their tongues weigh as much as an elephant. When they breach, leaping out of the water, over 100 tons of whale momentarily becomes airborne, defying gravity through sheer muscle power. It's one of the most spectacular sights in nature. And they feed on some of the smallest creatures, krill, tiny shrimp-like crustaceans that swarm in vast numbers in polar and temperate waters. A blue whale can eat about 4 tons of krill per day during feeding season, filter feeding by taking enormous gulps of water and pushing it out through baleen plates, trapping the krill inside. The largest animal eating some of the smallest animals. There's something poetic about that. From simple sponges that have no brain, no nervous system, no organs, no tissues even, just clusters of cells working together to filter water and extract nutrients, to octopuses with complex nervous systems and problem-solving abilities that rival some mammals. Sponges are so simple they can be pushed through a fine mesh, breaking them into individual cells, and those cells will find each other and reassemble into a functioning sponge. They're almost more like colonies than individuals. Yet they've been successful for over 600 million years, surviving mass extinctions, adapting to changing oceans, quietly filtering water, and providing habitat for countless other creatures. Octopuses, on the other hand, are marvels of complexity. They have 9 brains, a central brain and a cluster of neurons in each of their 8 arms. Each arm can think for itself to some extent, exploring and manipulating objects independently while the central brain coordinates overall behavior. They can solve puzzles, open jars, navigate mazes, recognize individual humans. They've been observed using tools, carrying coconut shells to use as portable shelters, collecting stones to block the entrances to their dens. They can change color and texture in less than a second, matching their surroundings so perfectly they seem to vanish. They do this using specialized cells in their skin called chromatophores, which expand or contract to reveal different colors, and cells called papillae that change the skin's texture. An octopus can look like a rock, then a piece of coral, then a patch of sand, all in the span of seconds. from delicate jellyfish that are 95% water, drifting with the currents, moving with a gentle, pulsing motion that's mesmerizing to watch, to powerful sharks that have prowled the oceans for hundreds of millions of years. Jellyfish have no brain, no blood, no heart. They're among the simplest animals, yet they've been successful for over 500 million years. Some species of jellyfish are essentially immortal, able to revert to a juvenile state after reaching maturity, potentially cycling through their life cycle indefinitely. The Turritopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish, can do this. It can age backward, returning to a polyp stage and starting over. In theory, if not killed or eaten, it could live forever. Sharks, meanwhile, are apex predators, beautifully designed by millions of years of evolution. Their skeletons are made of cartilage, not bone, making them lighter and more flexible. Their skin is covered in tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles that reduce drag and increase swimming efficiency. They can detect electrical fields produced by other animals using special organs called ampullae of Lorenzini, allowing them to sense prey hidden in sand. Some sharks must keep swimming to breathe, forcing water over their gills. Others can rest on the bottom, pumping water through their gills. Great white sharks can detect a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Hammerhead sharks have their eyes on the ends of their wide heads, giving them a nearly 360-degree field of vision. The ocean contains every major group of animals. Fish, of course, tens of thousands of species, from tiny gobies smaller than your fingernail, some adult fish measuring less than 8 millimeters long, to whale sharks longer than a school bus, reaching lengths of over 18 meters. Mammals adapted to marine life, whales and dolphins and seals and sea lions and manatees and sea otters and polar bears. Once land animals that returned to the sea millions of years ago, evolving flippers and streamlined bodies, and the ability to hold their breath for long periods. Sperm whales can hold their breath for over 90 minutes, diving to depths of over 2 kilometers. Elephant seals can stay underwater for over 2 hours, their heart rate slowing to just a few beats per minute to conserve oxygen. Reptiles, sea turtles and sea snakes, and saltwater crocodiles and marine iguanas. Sea turtles have been in the oceans for over 100 million years, swimming alongside dinosaurs, surviving the mass extinction that killed the dinosaurs, continuing to this day. They migrate thousands of kilometers, returning to nest on the same beaches where they were born. How they navigate is still not entirely understood, but they seem to use Earth's magnetic field, essentially having a built-in GPS that guides them across featureless open ocean. Some sea snakes are among the most venomous reptiles on Earth, but they're generally docile, rarely biting unless provoked. Marine iguanas, found only in the Galapagos Islands, are the only lizards that forage in the ocean, diving to feed on algae, then sunbathing on volcanic rocks to warm up afterward. Countless invertebrates, creatures without backbones, mollusks, clams and oysters and snails and slugs and squid and octopuses, crustaceans, crabs and lobsters and shrimp and krill and barnacles, echinoderms, sea stars and sea urchins and sea cucumbers, worms of every description, cnidarians, jellyfish and sea anemones and corals, and creatures that don't fit easy categories, organisms that blur the lines between animal and plant, between simple and complex, between individual and colony. Coral reefs, for instance. They look like rocky structures, like underwater gardens of stone, but they're actually colonies of tiny animals called polyps. Each polyp is soft-bodied, cylindrical, related to jellyfish and sea anemones. They have a mouth surrounded by tentacles that they use to capture tiny plankton. But individually, they're tiny, usually just a few millimeters across. They secrete hard calcium carbonate skeletons around themselves for protection. And over time, thousands and thousands of these skeletons build up into the structures we call coral reefs. When the polyps die, their skeletons remain, and new polyps grow on top. Generation after generation, the reef grows, sometimes for thousands of years. A coral reef is a city built by millions of tiny architects, each one contributing its small part to a structure that can be seen from space. The Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia is the largest living structure on Earth, stretching over 2,300 kilometers, covering an area roughly the size of Italy. It's not a single reef, but a complex of nearly 3,000 individual reefs and 900 islands. It's home to over 1,500 species of fish, 400 species of coral, 4,000 species of mollusks, and countless other creatures. It's one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet. And these reefs are incredibly diverse. Though they cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, coral reefs are home to about 25% of all marine species. 1/4 of all ocean life depends on reefs for food or shelter at some point in their lives. Reefs are oases of life in the open ocean, providing food and shelter and breeding grounds for countless creatures. They protect coastlines from storm waves, absorbing wave energy. They support human economies through fishing and tourism. They're sources of new medicines, with compounds from reef organisms showing promise for treating cancer, bacterial infections, and other diseases. Reefs are built through a partnership. The coral polyps have symbiotic algae called zooxanthellae living in their tissues. The algae photosynthesize, producing food that they share with the coral. In return, the coral provides the algae with a safe place to live and access to sunlight. It's a mutualistic relationship, both partners benefiting. Without the algae, the coral couldn't build reefs. Without the coral, the algae would drift away. Together, they create ecosystems that support millions of species. In the deep sea, far from sunlight and coral reefs, creatures have adapted in extraordinary ways. Anglerfish have a bioluminescent lure dangling in front of their mouths, actually a modified dorsal fin spine with a light-producing organ at the tip. They wiggle it, attracting curious prey close enough to snap up. Some species have mouths so large and stomachs so expandable they can swallow prey larger than themselves, crucial in a place where food is scarce and meals must be taken whenever possible. Their jaws unhinge, their stomachs stretch, and they can consume fish twice their own size. Then they might not eat again for months, digesting slowly, conserving energy in the food-poor depths. Gulper eels, also called pelican eels, have enormous jaws that unhinge, allowing them to engulf large meals. Their bodies are mostly mouth and stomach, with a long, thin tail trailing behind. They look more like living fishing nets than typical fish. Vampire squid, despite their ominous name, are actually gentle creatures. They don't bite, and they're not true squid. They're unique enough to be classified in their own order. They feed on marine snow, the constant gentle drift of organic debris falling from the waters above. Dead plankton, fecal pellets, mucus. all the tiny particles that rain down continuously. They have light-producing organs all over their bodies and can produce dazzling light displays when threatened, startling potential predators. They can also turn themselves inside out, wrapping their webbed arms over their body to form a protective spiky ball. Vampire squid have the largest eyes relative to body size of any animal. Their eyes can be as large as a dog's eyes, despite the squid being only about 30 centimeters long. These huge eyes gather every available photon of light, allowing them to see the faint bioluminescence of other creatures in the near total darkness of their habitat. They live at depths of 600 to 1200 meters in oxygen minimum zones where dissolved oxygen is extremely low. Most creatures couldn't survive there, but vampire squid have evolved efficient oxygen-using systems and a low metabolism that allows them to thrive where others can't. Octopuses, those intelligent mollusks we mentioned earlier, can change color and texture in an instant, matching their surroundings so perfectly they seem to vanish. They do this despite being colorblind, which scientists are still trying to fully understand. It seems their skin itself can detect light and respond independently. They can squeeze through any opening larger than their beak, their only hard body part. Their boneless bodies are incredibly flexible. There are videos of large octopuses squeezing through holes the size of a coin. They've been observed using tools, carrying coconut shells to use as portable shelters, collecting stones to block the entrances to their dens, even squirting water at annoying lights in aquarium settings. They've been documented solving puzzles, opening jars with child-proof lids, navigating mazes, even recognizing individual humans and responding differently to people they like versus people they don't. They seem to have personalities, some bold and curious, others shy and retiring. Each of their 8 arms has its own cluster of neurons. About 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are in its arms rather than its brain, so an octopus's intelligence is distributed throughout its body. The arms can taste and feel and even make simple decisions independently, freeing up the central brain for higher-level thinking. They're alien in the most wonderful way, showing us that intelligence can take forms very different from our own. Intelligence doesn't have to be centralized in one brain. It doesn't have to be based on the same neural architecture as mammals. Life finds different solutions to the same problems. Sea turtles navigate across entire ocean basins using Earth's magnetic field, an internal compass that guides them back to the exact beach where they were born, sometimes decades later and thousands of kilometers away. Loggerhead sea turtles born on beaches in Japan have been tracked swimming all the way across the Pacific to feeding grounds off the coast of Mexico, a journey of about 10,000 kilometers. Years later, when it's time to nest, they return, swimming back across the Pacific to the same Japanese beaches. How do they do this? They seem to imprint on the unique magnetic signature of their birth beach when they're hatchlings, scrambling from nest to sea. Earth's magnetic field varies slightly from place to place, and sea turtles can detect these variations, creating a magnetic map in their minds. Salmon do something similar, swimming upstream through rivers to return to their birthplace to spawn. They navigate using smell, remembering the unique chemical signature of their home stream. After spending years at sea, growing and feeding, they return to freshwater, entering river systems, swimming against the current, leaping up waterfalls, their bodies changing color, their jaws becoming hooked, their energy focused entirely on reaching their spawning grounds. They don't eat during this journey. They're running on stored reserves, swimming for weeks or months, sometimes covering hundreds of kilometers inland. When they finally reach their destination, they spawn, laying eggs in gravel, and then, exhausted, most die. Their bodies decompose, releasing nutrients into the stream system, feeding the insects and small fish that their offspring will later eat. Even in death, they contribute to the ecosystem, to the next generation. The ocean's creatures have abilities we're only beginning to understand, senses we don't possess, ways of perceiving the world that are entirely foreign to us. Sharks detect electrical fields. Dolphins see with sound. Sea turtles navigate by magnetism. Some fish detect water pressure and currents with specialized organs along their bodies. Some can detect chemical traces in parts per billion, following scent trails over vast distances. The ocean is a sensory landscape, richer and stranger than anything we experience on land. And some marine animals are incredibly ancient, not just as species, but as individuals. There are organisms alive in the ocean today that have been living for centuries. Glass sponges in the deep sea can live for thousands of years. One specimen was estimated to be about 11,000 years old, making it one of the oldest living things on Earth. It was already ancient when the pyramids were being built, already old when Stonehenge was erected, already a part of the ocean when humans were just beginning agriculture. And it's still there, quietly filtering water in the cold deep, a living link to the distant past. Greenland sharks, which live in the cold waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic, swimming slowly through the frigid darkness, can live for 400 years or more, possibly up to 500 years. They grow very slowly, only about a centimeter per year, and don't reach sexual maturity until they're about 150 years old. There are Greenland sharks swimming today that were born before the United States became a country, that were young when the American Revolution was fought, that have been swimming through the Arctic for longer than any nation currently exists. What might they have witnessed in their centuries of life? What changes in the ocean have they experienced? Ocean quahog clams, found in the cold waters of the North Atlantic, can live for over 500 years. One individual, nicknamed Ming, because it was born during China's Ming dynasty, was found to be 507 years old when scientists examined it. These clams grow slowly, adding layers to their shells year by year, creating growth rings like trees. By counting the rings, scientists can determine their age and even reconstruct past ocean temperatures, since growth rate varies with temperature. These ancient animals are living archives, their bodies recording environmental conditions over centuries. The ocean also holds living fossils, species that have remained relatively unchanged for millions of years, sometimes called Lazarus taxa, because they were thought extinct but were then rediscovered. Horseshoe crabs, which aren't actually crabs, but more closely related to spiders and scorpions, have been around for about 450 million years. They've survived multiple mass extinctions, including the one that killed the dinosaurs. They were here before trees existed on land, before insects had wings, before vertebrates had jaws. Their body plan has remained essentially unchanged for hundreds of millions of years because it works so well. They have blue blood due to copper-based hemocyanin instead of iron-based hemoglobin. Their blood is used in medicine to detect bacterial contamination in vaccines and medical devices. Nautilus, Those beautiful shelled cephalopods with their spiral shells divided into chambers have existed for about 500 million years. They're related to octopuses and squid, but unlike those animals which have lost or internalized their shells, nautiluses retained the external spiral shell. They live in the outermost chamber and use the other chambers for buoyancy control, adding or removing gas to rise or sink in the water column. They move by jet propulsion, squirting water to push themselves backward. They have simple eyes, just pinholes without lenses, and about 90 tentacles for capturing prey. They're living representatives of a very ancient lineage. Coelacanths, large fish with lobed fins, were thought to be extinct for millions of years. Their fossil record showed they first appeared about 400 million years ago and seemed to die out about 66 million years ago, around the same time as the dinosaurs. Then, in 1938, a living coelacanth was caught off the coast of South Africa. It was a sensation called the zoological find of the century. Since then, 2 species of coelacanth have been found, living in deep waters off Africa and Indonesia. They're called living fossils because they've changed so little over time, though scientists now prefer the term conserved morphology. Coelacanths have unique features, including a joint in their skull that allows the front half to move relative to the back half, and lobed pectoral and pelvic fins that move alternately, similar to how land animals walk. They give birth to live young after a gestation period of up to 5 years, one of the longest known. The ocean preserves ancient forms, providing stable environments where creatures that evolved long ago can continue to thrive. The deep sea in particular is stable, with constant cold temperatures, constant darkness, constant high pressure. Conditions haven't changed much in millions of years, so creatures adapted to those conditions haven't needed to change much either. It's a refuge for ancient lineages. All of this diversity, all of these millions of species, they're connected. Tiny phytoplankton are eaten by zooplankton, tiny drifting animals ranging from single-celled protozoans to jellyfish larvae to babyfish. Zooplankton are eaten by small fish, by filter-feeding organisms like mussels and clams, by coral polyps, by whale sharks and manta rays that despite their size feed on tiny prey. Small fish are eaten by larger fish, and by squid, and by seabirds diving from above. Larger fish are eaten by sharks, by dolphins, by seals, by tuna, by marlin. Apex predators like orcas and great white sharks sit at the top of the food web, eating large prey, but rarely being eaten themselves. Everything is connected in a vast web of feeding relationships, energy flowing from sunlight to plants, to herbivores to carnivores, cycling through the system. Energy enters through photosynthesis and flows upward through the food web, decreasing at each level. It takes about 10 kilograms of phytoplankton to produce 1 kilogram of zooplankton, 10 kilograms of zooplankton to produce 1 kilogram of small fish, 10 kilograms of small fish to produce 1 kilogram of large fish. This is why there are relatively few apex predators. The ocean can only support so many at the top of the pyramid. When creatures die, they don't disappear. They sink, and their bodies are consumed by scavengers and decomposers. Hagfish and deep-sea crustaceans feast on whale falls, the carcasses of dead whales that sink to the ocean floor. A single whale carcass can support a complex ecosystem for decades, progressing through different stages as different organisms colonize it. First, the mobile scavengers arrive, sharks and hagfish and sleeper sharks, consuming the soft tissue. Then crustaceans and worms move in, eating the remaining flesh and bones. Finally, bacteria colonize the bones, breaking down the oils and fats stored within, releasing nutrients. Specialized worms and clams that host symbiotic bacteria live around these bones, thriving on the chemicals released. A whale fall is an oasis of life in the deep sea, a gift from the surface to the depths. Smaller particles, the marine snow we mentioned earlier, drifts downward continuously. Fecal pellets from animals, dead plankton, molted shells, mucus, all the tiny organic particles produced in the surface waters rain down constantly like snow. This marine snow feeds animals in the deeper layers. Without it, the deep sea would be nearly barren. It's the connection between surface and depths, the transfer of energy from the sunlit zone to the darkness below. And the nutrients released by decomposition are taken up by phytoplankton, starting the cycle anew. When organisms die, bacteria break down their bodies, releasing nitrogen and phosphorus and other nutrients back into the water. Upwelling, the rising of deep cold water, brings these nutrients back to the surface where phytoplankton can use them. Coastal upwelling zones, like off California, Peru, and Northwest Africa, are some of the most productive areas of the ocean because deep, nutrient-rich water is constantly being brought to the surface. The ocean is a giant recycling system. Nothing is wasted. Everything is reused. Energy and matter flowing in great cycles that have been running for billions of years. Carbon moves from atmosphere to ocean to phytoplankton, to zooplankton, to fish, to decomposers, to atmosphere and ocean again. Nitrogen is fixed from the atmosphere by bacteria, used by organisms, released by decomposition, and the cycle continues. The ocean holds and moves and transforms these elements, keeping them in circulation, keeping life going. The ocean's biodiversity isn't just beautiful or interesting, it's essential. It provides food for hundreds of millions of people. About 3 billion people rely on seafood as their primary source of protein. Fishing and aquaculture employ hundreds of millions more. The ocean produces much of our oxygen, 50 to 80% as we discussed. It regulates our climate, absorbing heat and carbon dioxide, moderating temperature swings. It breaks down pollutants, with bacteria evolving to consume even oil and plastics. It offers potential medicines. Many compounds from marine organisms have been developed into medicines. Drugs from cone snails are used as powerful painkillers. Compounds from sharks are being studied for their antibacterial properties. Algae produce omega-3 fatty acids, vital for human health. Sponges and tunicates yield compounds being tested against cancer. The ocean is a pharmacy we've barely begun to explore. The ocean's diversity is a library of genetic information, billions of years of evolution experimenting with different ways to live, different solutions to the challenges of existence. How to survive without oxygen, how to withstand crushing pressure, how to produce light, how to resist freezing, how to live for centuries, how to navigate without eyes. Every species represents solutions to problems, adaptations that might someday inspire human technology or medicine. And most of it remains unexplored. Most of the ocean is still a mystery to us. Scientists estimate that we've explored less than 5% of the ocean in any meaningful way. 5%. The rest remains unknown, waiting. There are mountain ranges we've never seen, trenches we've never descended, ecosystems we don't know exist. Every deep-sea expedition finds new species. Every survey of a seamount or coral reef reveals creatures never before described. In 2019, an expedition to hydrothermal vents on the mid-Atlantic ridge found dozens of new species. In 2020, explorers in the Philippines discovered the deepest fish ever recorded, a snailfish at 8,300 meters. The ocean constantly surprises us. There are species living their entire lives without any contact with the human world, going about their business in the deep darkness or the open blue, unaware that somewhere above them, on the thin crust of land, creatures are wondering what else is out there. There are still mysteries. There are still wonders to discover. The ocean still holds secrets, and maybe it always will. Maybe that's part of its magic, that it's too big, too deep, too vast to ever fully know. There will always be more to explore, always more to learn, always more to wonder at. And we're part of this, you know. We're part of the ocean's family tree. Life began in the ocean billions of years ago. The exact location and mechanism are still debated. Maybe in warm, shallow seas, with lightning providing energy. Maybe around hydrothermal vents, with chemical energy from Earth's interior. Maybe in tidal pools, with repeated cycles of wetting and drying. However it happened, those first simple cells, the ancestors of all life on Earth, emerged from the sea. They were probably single-celled, probably something like bacteria, probably chemosynthetic, using chemical energy rather than sunlight. From those humble beginnings, over billions of years, life diversified into everything we see today. For most of life's history, for 3 billion years, all life was aquatic. Life was confined to water, to oceans and lakes and rivers. Only in the last few 100 million years, less than 15% of life's total history, did organisms venture onto land. And when they did, they carried the ocean with them. The first land plants evolved from aquatic algae and still needed water to reproduce. The first land animals evolved from fish, developing lungs and limbs to survive out of water. But they still needed to return to water to lay eggs. Even today, even after millions of years of terrestrial evolution, land life bears the marks of its aquatic origins. Your blood has a similar salt concentration to seawater, about 0.9% salt, close to the salinity of ancient oceans. The amniotic fluid that surrounded you before you were born was like a tiny ocean, a reminder of where life came from. In the womb, we're aquatic, floating in fluid, breathing liquid, our early development recapitulating stages of evolution. Human embryos at early stages have gill-like structures that later develop into other tissues. We're reliving our aquatic past. You're mostly water, about 60% of your body by weight. Your brain is about 73% water. Your lungs are about 83% water. Your blood is about 90% water. Water is essential for nearly every biological process. It's the medium in which chemical reactions occur, the solvent that transports nutrients and wastes, the fluid that gives cells their shape. Without water, there is no life as we know it. And that water, the water in your cells, it's the same water that's been cycling through the planet for billions of years. The same water that filled ancient oceans. The same water that dinosaurs drank. The same water that falls as rain and flows in rivers and evaporates from the ocean. You carry that ancient water within you. In a very real sense, we're walking, talking pieces of ocean. We carry the sea within us. Let that thought settle gently as you rest. The ocean is not separate from you. You're made of the same elements, sustained by the same systems, connected by the same ancient history. The oxygen you breathe came from the ocean, produced by phytoplankton floating in sunlit waters. The water in your cells came from the ocean, cycled through rain and rivers and back again. The salt in your blood echoes the salt in seawater, a reminder of origins. You're part of something ancient and ongoing, something much larger than yourself, but that includes you completely. So as you lie here, breathing slowly, feeling your body relax and settle, remember the ocean. Remember that it's been here for 4 billion years, patient and persistent. Remember that it breathes with you, that every other breath comes from the sea, from tiny drifting organisms working ceaselessly to produce oxygen. Remember that it connects all living things, that water cycles through atmosphere and ocean and land and living bodies, linking everything together. Remember that it holds countless mysteries and countless beauties, from bioluminescent creatures glowing in the depths, to massive whales singing across ocean basins, from microscopic phytoplankton to ancient glass sponges, from coral cities to deep trenches, from crashing waves to still abyssal plains. Remember that it moves in great slow currents, the conveyor belt taking 1,000 years to complete its circuit, balancing the planet, distributing warmth, carrying nutrients, mixing and stirring and equalizing. Remember that it cycles water through evaporation and rain, lifting water from the sea into the sky, dropping it on land, gathering it in rivers, returning it to the ocean, again and again and again. The same water molecules participating in this eternal dance. Remember that it's filled with life, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale. Each creature adapted to its niche, each one playing its part in the vast interconnected web of feeding and being fed, living and dying and decomposing and becoming life again. The ocean has weathered asteroid impacts and ice ages, volcanic eruptions and mass extinctions. It's seen continents drift apart and come back together. Mountains rise and erode. Climates shift from greenhouse warmth to icehouse cold and back. It's witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, the evolution of ever more complex life, the emergence of intelligence in dolphins and octopuses, and eventually humans. And through it all, it's endured, it's continued, it's adapted. The ocean is patient. It works on timescales that dwarf human concerns, that make human lifetimes seem like brief flickers. 1,000 years for a single water molecule to complete the conveyor belt circulation. Centuries for a Greenland shark to grow old. Thousands of years for a glass sponge to reach maturity. Millions of years for a species to evolve. The ocean doesn't hurry, it doesn't rush. It simply continues, steady and sure, doing the work it's always done. And that work includes supporting you. Right now, as you rest, the ocean is producing oxygen for your next breath. Phytoplankton somewhere are photosynthesizing, releasing oxygen molecules that will mix into the atmosphere and eventually find their way to your lungs. The ocean is regulating the temperature of the planet so that where you are remains livable, absorbing excess heat, moderating extremes. It's cycling water so that rain will fall and rivers will flow, and you'll have fresh water to drink. It's feeding billions of people, providing protein and sustenance, supporting coastal communities, offering livelihoods. It's providing recreation and beauty, beaches for walking, waves for swimming or surfing, vistas for contemplating, sunsets over water that take your breath away. It's doing all of this without asking anything in return, without pausing, without stopping. It's been doing this since long before you were born, since long before your grandparents were born, since long before humans existed at all. And it will continue doing this long after you're gone, long after all current humans are gone, long after our species itself might be gone. The ocean has outlasted so many species, so many forms of life. It will outlast us too. There's something deeply comforting in that, isn't there? That the great systems of the planet are at work, that the ocean is taking care of the world, that you can rest and let it do what it does best. You don't have to maintain the currents. You don't have to steer the Gulf Stream or regulate the conveyor belt. You don't have to tell the phytoplankton to photosynthesize or remind the whales to sing. It all happens without your effort, without your conscious thought, without your worry. The ocean takes care of itself, and in doing so takes care of the planet and all life upon it. You are held by these systems, supported by them, kept alive by them, and you can rest in that knowledge. So let yourself relax completely now. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Perhaps match your breath to the rhythm of waves lapping on a shore, slow and steady, predictable and calming, in and out, like the tides that rise and fall twice a day in response to the moon's pull, like the currents that flow year after year in their established patterns, like the water cycle that has run unchanged for billions of years. In and out, rise and fall. The ocean's rhythm, which is also your rhythm. You're made of the same elements. You're part of the same world. You're connected by water and air and carbon and all the building blocks of life. Breathe in the oxygen that phytoplankton made for you, oxygen released just recently, or perhaps weeks ago, drifting in wind currents, mixing in the atmosphere, finding its way to you. Breathe out, releasing carbon dioxide back into the cycle, carbon dioxide that might be absorbed by the ocean, used by phytoplankton, cycled through the food web, eventually returning. In and out, giving and receiving, part of the endless exchange that keeps the world alive, that keeps life going, that maintains the delicate balance that allows complex organisms like you to exist. If you're still awake, that's wonderful. If you're drifting towards sleep, that's wonderful too. The ocean doesn't mind. It will still be here when you wake. It will still be there in the morning. Waves still rolling onto shores, tides still turning, currents still flowing deep beneath the surface. It will still be moving its great circulation patterns, still producing oxygen, still singing its whale songs in the deep, still glowing with bioluminescence in the darkness where no human eye can see. It will still be doing its patient, eternal work, working that predates humanity, work that will continue after humanity, work that is indifferent to our presence, but that sustains us nonetheless. And you can rest, knowing that you're connected to it, part of it, held by the same planet, breathing the same air, sharing the same ancient water. The water in your body has been through countless cycles. It's been ocean and cloud and rain and river and ocean again. It's been drunk by animals and incorporated into plants and released again. It's been part of ancient seas and polar ice caps and tropical storms. It carries within it the history of the planet, and now it carries within you, sustaining you, giving you form and function. Imagine yourself floating now, gently floating on calm water, supported effortlessly. The water holds you without effort. You don't have to do anything, don't have to try, don't have to struggle. Just float. Just let the water support you. The sun is warm on your face, a gentle warmth, not too hot, just comfortable. The water is the perfect temperature, neither cold nor hot, just pleasant. Waves rock you gently, a soothing rhythm, like being cradled, like being a baby rocked to sleep, safe and protected and loved. Beneath you, extending down into the blue, is the vast ocean, deep and mysterious and full of life. Somewhere below, phytoplankton are drifting and photosynthesizing. Fish are swimming in schools, moving in coordinated patterns. Whales are calling to each other across distances. Octopuses are hunting in crevices. Jellyfish are pulsing through the water. Sharks are patrolling their territories. Currents are flowing, deep and cold, moving water around the planet. And in the deepest parts, in the trenches where light never reaches, creatures are glowing with bioluminescence, living their quiet lives under enormous pressure, adapted to conditions we can barely imagine. But you're safe on the surface, held up, supported. The water won't let you sink. You're buoyant, floating, part of the ocean but separate from its depths. You're safe. You're held. You're part of something vast and beautiful and eternal, but you're also yourself, individual, unique, floating peacefully on the surface of this great mystery. The ocean has been here for 4 billion years. It has witnessed everything Earth has experienced since life began. It has seen the first cells divide, the first multicellular creatures emerge, the first animals crawl from the sea onto land, the first forests grow, the first dinosaurs roam. The age of mammals begin, humanity arise. It has seen ice ages and warm periods, continents collide and split, mountains rise from the sea and erode back down. It has remained through all of this, adapting, changing in some ways, but fundamentally enduring. And it will continue. Patient, persistent, powerful in its gentleness, mighty in its constancy. And you are part of it. You are connected to it by evolution, by chemistry, by the water you drink and the air you breathe. You are held by the same world, the same systems, the same ancient waters that have cycled for eons. So, rest now. Let the ocean's rhythm become your rhythm. Let its patience become your patience. Let its peace become your peace. Let its endurance remind you that life goes on, that systems persist, that the world continues turning. The ocean is here. It's always been here, at least for the last 4 billion years, which is essentially forever on human timescales. And it will carry on, doing its work, nurturing life, cycling water, producing oxygen, regulating climate, singing its songs, glowing in its depths, supporting its countless creatures. And you can rest. You can let go. You can trust that the great systems of the world are in motion, that you're supported, that you're part of something much larger than yourself, something ancient and wise and enduring. So close your eyes if you haven't already. Feel your body sinking into comfort, into softness, into rest. Feel the bed or couch or chair supporting you, holding you up, keeping you safe. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to maintain awareness. You can drift. You can let go. Breathe slowly, in and out, like waves rolling onto a beach, gentle and rhythmic and endless. Like tides rising and falling twice a day, every day, forever. Like the ocean's eternal rhythm, patient and unchanging. And know that you're exactly where you need to be. The ocean holds the world. The world holds you. And everything is connected. Everything is balanced. Everything is as it should be. You are part of an ancient story, a story that began billions of years ago and continues today and will continue tomorrow and for billions of years to come. You are a small part of that story, but you are part of it nonetheless. Your breath, your heartbeat, your existence, it's all part of the great dance of life that the ocean supports and sustains. Rest now. Let sleep come if it wants to come. Let your thoughts slow and drift like marine snow falling through water, gently, slowly, downward into rest. The ocean will keep watch. It always has. It always will. Patient and powerful, gentle and vast, eternal and ever-present. The ocean is here, and so are you. Both part of the same beautiful, ancient, living world. Sleep well. The waves will still be rolling in the morning. The tides will still be turning with the moon's pull. The whales will still be singing their ancient songs in the deep blue. The phytoplankton will still be producing oxygen with each sunrise. The currents will still be flowing deep beneath the surface, moving water in their eternal patterns. And you will still be part of it all, carried by the same planet, breathing the same air, connected to the vast blue ocean that covers most of our world. Good night. May you dream of deep waters and distant songs, of bioluminescent stars in the darkness, of ancient currents carrying you gently through the endless blue. May your sleep be as deep as the Mariana Trench and as peaceful as a calm sea at sunset. May you rest in the knowledge that you are held, you are supported, you are part of something eternal. The ocean is with you. You are part of the ocean, and all is well. All is as it should be. Rest now. Just rest. The world is turning. The ocean is breathing. And you are safe. You are held. You are home. Sleep now. Sleep